let me do that again. So hi, this is Module 3, which is Azure Rate Card and Usage in Azure CSP. We're going to start in about 30 seconds. First will be Vikram, who will cover Azure Rate Card, and then we will kick it over to Ashish, who will cover usage. And then at the end, we'll have a about 15-minute Q&A on this topic. So Vikram, let me hand it over to you, and you can get started.
Hi. Uh, Let me introduce myself. I'm Vikram Desai. I'm a program manager on the Azure billing team. So we work with partners, customers on both Azure sign up, billing, and the whole pipeline, which includes pricing, usage, uh, and the last part of it where you get the invoices kind of thing. I'm going to cover in this session mainly rate card, but I will touch on some of the usage aspects before I can go into rate card, because just to set context for what the rate card means in general. So before I get in, the Azure model for CSP as well as for any other subscription is that it is usage based. And what I mean by usage based here is that depending on it is not that you know the price up front. You know the price, the unit cost up front. So for a VM, for example, it could be that A1 VM is 10 cents per hour. So that depending on how many hours the VM runs, the usage is calculated by that. And there are several pieces to the usage. So in the case of VMs, it's computed by hours. Storage, it's computed by units like gigabytes. Bandwidth is also gigabytes. Databases could have also by compute hours or how many database hours got used. So the usage is based on the service that runs and how much time it's running. So from the usage, what you get back is the raw number of essentially how much time the service is being used for within an Azure subscription or by an Azure customer. So as a partner, you get access to usage by subscription as well as usage by customer. And all of this is helpful for you to calculate the cost or price that you need to charge your customer. From a end-to-end billing perspective, what you're looking at is that the billing relationship of partner as you is with Microsoft. That's the bill that Microsoft sends to you.
Hi,
But
Vikram.
yep,
Are you advancing the slides?
I'm not yet advancing
Okay,
slides.
just making sure. Okay, continue.
Yep,
Sorry about that.
yep. So as a partner, you get access. Your bill comes from Microsoft, but as a partner, you are recharging your customers or rebilling your customers. So to rebill your customers, two things are necessary for you. One thing is you need to know the Azure prices within a CSP subscription. So essentially, depending on what resource got used, you need to know what the price is, and you need to know the usage from the customer within that subscription. So going back to my example of the VM, if as a customer you've launched a VM and it's been running for like 20 hours in a day, the usage number will come down to as 20 hours. And let's say the price was for that VM, which is A1 VM, is 10 cents per hour, in which case your cost is usage into price. So that's the simplest sort of representation where usage into price gives you the cost. Now, how do you get the prices? That's where the rate card comes in. And there are a couple of two options actually to get the prices. And I'm just going to go through the two options that you have. One is you can go to the partner center and you can go to the dashboard, sales, usage, and get the pricing sheet or the worksheet, which you can download. It's an Excel spreadsheet with all the prices for all the meters that you can sell to your customer. So this is one way. And this gives you price by month. So if a price changes from May to June, you'll know that May prices and June prices and can compare them. Then there is the rate card API. This is for the programmatic access. And the main advantage of this is that you can basically get usage programmatically, you can get the rates programmatically, and compute the bill for your customer programmatically and send it to the customer. So You could use either the Excel spreadsheet or you could use the rate card API. The disadvantage of the Excel spreadsheet in that is that you need to make sure that you update it frequently so that if prices are changing, the latest Excel spreadsheet is getting used, whereas the rate card gives you the current rates. Of course, now if you want to look at the historical rates, rate card doesn't give you that part of it. So if you want historical, go to the usage-based pricing spreadsheet, which is there on the Partner Center. Download it and you get all the prices. If you want the pricing, the current pricing, use the rate card API. Of course, if you're automating the entire process, the recommended way is that you use the rate card API, get the prices, and go from there. Now, that's the high level of how you get the prices. Within Azure prices also, there are some nuances that you need to know about. How do you compute prices and what is getting charged? If you look at this spreadsheet, it gives you an idea of what is getting charged. The resource ID is the billing meter. So in this case, what is getting shown is API management. But if it was VM, it would be basically a resource GUID or resource ID for the VM. So essentially think of this as basically the barcode or the billing meter for that resource or service that is getting used. For that service that gets used, now you have the prices, and on the right hand side you'll see the prices in several currencies, in the USD, dollars, as well as other currencies that are supported. So essentially what you have, if you look at this, is resource ID and the prices. What comes out from usage is resource ID and the quantity that gets used. So in the case of VM, it would come out as 20 hours got used with the resource GUID as 1, 2, 3, 4. You use the resource ID as the key into either the rate card API or into the price sheet and get the appropriate prices, and then you're down to basically multiplying the two and getting the cost. So that's the basic level of things. Now you need to look at other nuances which come in here, which is along with the prices which are there for GUID, which is the resource ID or the billing meter, there are things like included quantities and pricing tiers. So what is included quantities? Essentially, there are cases where we basically give some amount of resources included for usage. So an example here is that, is that number of devices, extra small intelligent service devices, 100,000 are included. What that means is that if the consumption was 2,000, the first 1,000 is not billed and rest of it is billed. So essentially you go back to the formula, which is usage into pricing. You need to subtract included quantities from the usage, get the billable amount, and then price it. And of course, that's up to you if you pass on the included quantities to your customer or not. That's your choice. But from a Microsoft point of view, we basically show, like Azure point of view, we're saying that you get some amount of included quantities along with the usage. So that's the first part of the nuance here. The second part is pricing tiers, or essentially what we call as graduated pricing. And this is basically more you use, the better price you get. That's the high level statement of what it means, or pricing tiers. And the example for that is that you basically have, say, I'm using 5 GB of storage. The first 1 GB could be at price 50 cents. The next 2 GBs is at price 10 cents, and so on. So basically, it's like as you consume more, the price gets better. And again, now when you're computing the price, you need to take care of the fact that, hey, by the way, it was 5 GB. It boils down to 3 buckets: 1 GB bucket, the 1 to 3 GB bucket, and 3 to 5 GB bucket. So get the buckets, get the bucket-based pricing, and then calculate the rates for that user. So that's how you would get the price for a given customer based on the graduated pricing or the pricing tier. So if the customer were to use more, he gets a better price. So the two things that that you need to look at when you're doing pricing is included quantities is one, and the second one is the graduated tiers or graduated pricing. Given those two, you can calculate the price for your customer. It's your choice that you pass on included quantities or pricing tiers, but this would be the charge that we charge you from the usage perspective. So I'll go a little more deeper into the rate card API and what use that is for you. So it's basically a REST-based programmatic API to get all resource details and pricing. It lists all the available Azure resources. There is resource metadata. So the main thing that you need to really program against is the key, which is the GUID or the resource ID. But you have other information, which is what is the name of the meter, and all of this is localized. So what is the category of the meter? So if you were going to look at it just with that, you can get that information. Included quantity and graduated pricing we already talked about. And one thing to note is that the rates that come out is the pre-tax rates, tax is not included. So I'll go into one example of a response. So if you call the rate card API, you pass in the offer ID. For CSP, it's a 145p. You pass in the currency, locale, and the region to get the localized versions. And the output, if you look at it, as I said, the meter ID is the GUID, the key, which is the most important in the sense that that's what you need to calculate the prices. The name, category, meter subcategory, all these are metadata, which is good for visualization. And if you're building, say, a calculator or a pricing sheet programmatically, you can use that. The unit tells you what it is, like gigabytes, hours, things like that. The region of the meter is basically where, not the resource being run, but what region is the billing ID or the meter being charged for. So essentially, if your resource is running in Europe, the meter ID or the meter region is Europe in that sense. So essentially, what pricing tier or what regional pricing is getting used. That's what the meter region says. And we talked about graduated pricing before. If you look at this, here is an example where the 0th is the 0 to 10024 is the price as 0.06. The next tier is 1024 to 512, and so on. So the graduated pricing essentially gives you the rates and the buckets where you can calculate things. And just to note, the bucket is basically inclusive of 1024. So essentially 1024, 0 to 1024, and 1024 to 512. So include the bucket on the left in a sense. And of course, the last one is the included quantity. So this is the rate card response. I can show you the output I have for a CSP subscription, and I'm going to just share that.
Your screen is not refreshing.
My screen is not refreshing?
You're sharing your screen.
Is it refreshing?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So now is it refreshing now or not yet? Ashish is not seeing it.
That's okay. Keep
Yeah. I have a Notepad++ window open.
Yes.
Can you guys see the rate card output?
Yes, we can see the notepad.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the rate card output here, where you see that I just showed you one in the presentation of one which had a calculated pricing, just for an example. But here is the full output, the JSON output for the rate card. So essentially, example of compute hours, and as you go on, you can see all the resources that are supported in CSP and what the pricing is. And most resources do not have a graduated pricing, but the one I showed you, which was storage is one which has graduated pricing. Most of them even does not have included quantities. One of the ones which has included quantities is bandwidth egress, and it should be there in one of these outputs. Yeah. So this is one of the rate card output. I'll go to the pricing sheet that you can download. The pricing sheet that you can download, you have the price sheet and the May change history. So essentially, here you get the same information in the Excel form, and you can use that to essentially compute prices. Either the rate card or this, both should work if you want to compute usage into cost. Usage into the price itself. I'm going back to the presentation. Just one more slide here, which we have discussed already. Just recapping here is that get the Azure usage from Azure Usage API. That's the raw usage. And Ashish will go into some more details around how you can get estimated usage or estimated rates for the current month. But if you want raw over a period of time, the Azure Usage API will give you that. Get the rates from the rate card or the pricing sheet. One of the two should suffice. The cost is usage into rate at a very high level, but take into consideration included quantities, apply pricing details by pricing tier to calculate the graduated pricing, and based on that, pass on the cost either to your customers or you would know what the cost is that Microsoft is charging you. So that's the overview of rate card and how you would use it, and a preview of what usage, or basically how you tie to the usage that comes from your subscription. I'll pass on to Ashish on to how usage will be calculated for the current month. You could, I don't know if you have questions now or we should stop towards the end for the questions. I think
So
covering the
Vikram,
usage might be good.
yeah,
Yeah,
so Ashish, you can go ahead and take over as
yeah,
presenter so that
okay.
you can do the usage. Vikram, there was one quick question from
Sure.
Corey, so we could just do that right now while Ashish
Okay,
takes over.
sure.
So we had a question from Corey McLean. How do we get remaining credits on an Azure and Open subscription?
Okay. So Azure Open subscriptions today for remaining credits, if you go to the Azure Accounts portal, for in the Accounts portal, it will give you the credits remaining by token and the total credits remaining. So if you go and log in with your account, the admin account to the account.windowsazure.com, that is for the customer. Is the question more, let me rephrase the question and ask the question. Is it more towards the partner view of how much the customer is using, or is it the customer view of how much is remaining?
He's asking, is there an API or dashboard?
There is currently there's no API, and the dashboard I get is account.windowsazure.com.
Partner view for multiple customers is what he was
Yeah.
referencing.
Okay. Yeah, and unfortunately, there is no partner view for multiple customers that once the token is provided to the customer can see how much is remaining for the token, or if the partner has access to the customer's account, they can go to the account.windowsazure.com and find out how much is remaining. But
Is
there
it
is
the
no API right
usage?
now.
Is it the usage?
It's not the usage. It's basically how much is remaining on the token.
Okay.
Yeah. You could, yeah, the question was, is there a roadmap? Uh, we are looking into providing that information. And it's not directly as far as how much the token is burned down, but we may look at more so providing a usage API, which will give you usage and how much is being used, and you can basically infer from that how much is remaining. So essentially, the token was $1,000. The usage plus rate card would give you, let's say, the customer has consumed, say, $100 based on the usage and rate card, and you could subtract it from the $1,000 to find out, hey, by the way, likely $900 is remaining. So we don't have an immediate roadmap on showing how much is remaining on the token, I'd say, but it can be inferred from usage plus rate card.
Okay, great. And Vikram, do you just want to take this last one from Aravind
Sure.
before Ashish, we hand it over to you?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'm just reading through the question. Yeah.
yeah, so the question is, does the rate card API provide a
Yep.
mechanism to determine the validity dates for
Yeah.
the rate card?
So in the rate card, there is when you do a rate card API, there is an effective date of when the price is basically being charged as of. So there is so you can basically know when this price change occurred or when the price was applicable. It doesn't show you the historical price, but you would know that this price was applicable from June 1st or whatever the date was. And if you were querying it before June 1st, it would say that this price was applicable as of, say, March 1st. So it shows the effective date, which could be looked at so valid. I'm not sure if it actually answers the question of validity, but it's basically when the price is applicable as of.
Okay, great. So let's hand it over to Ashish, and then again at the end, I'll open it up and I'll actually unmute the audience as well to ask some more questions. Ashish, you ready? Ashish, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. I'll walk you through multiple things, but for Azure rated usage. But before going there, right, just a quick overview of what is Partner Center SDK and API, just to level set. I'm not sure that every one of you are aware of that. Then get into the rated usage and various scenarios that we're supporting in Partner Center today for how do you see customer spending limits? How do you do rated usage for customer subscription or to a specific customer or all your customers? And same way, then get down into one level further into the details of that usage. Starting with the Partner Center overview. I think just a second, my PowerPoint crashed. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yes, we can. Overview of Partner Center SDK/API.
Yes. For Partner Center SDK and API, right, when we built it, we built on top 3 principles. First one is we wanted to keep the functionality in sync always. So at any point in time, any feature that we are releasing for Partner Center, we wanted to provide an API and SDK, corresponding SDK for each one of them. So any new feature as we release, right? So whether it's usage and as we enhance usage now going forward, also any feature, the way you can do actions as a partner or Partner Center, you can use your APIs to anyone extend it to your customers so that they can directly view their spend and monitor it and take actions. In addition, to make it further simple and easy to integrate, we are giving an SDK, which is an abstracted version of the API itself. So whether you call API or SDK, it's the same thing because SDK behind the scene calls API or API. So it's an easy way of object-oriented implementation for you to. It's only a .NET SDK that we have right now. In future, we may have other languages SDK as well. So if you are on Microsoft technologies, the SDK is the easiest way for you to integrate with Partner Center functionality. In addition, we are giving all the MSDN documentation and samples, which I'll walk you through in a minute. And also, we are giving a ready-to-go web app. So a lot of partners, what we have seen is if you want to spin up your online marketplace, right, integrate with SDK and or API, it takes some time. So we wanted to give you a ready-to-go web app, which you can just take it, configure and deploy. Take it and deploy and start using it. This makes it really easy, and the ready-to-go market strategy becomes way faster for partners rather than spending time on integration. So here is a full list of scenarios that we support today. It's a big list, and all of this is available at MSDN the same way. So as a customer, you can do like create customer, you can view your customers, you can view the few customer list, you can search for a specific customer, update their billing profile. You can even verify, like one of the biggest feedback we received was verifying domains. So while creating domain, you can verify whether this domain exists or not. These kind of functionalities are available in Partner Center, but not exposed by APIs before. So you made that available. So all that is available for you now. You can also like create order, create subscription. As a partner, you can even suspend a subscription. Choice is yours if you want to give that feature to a customer, but the API is available for you to use, right? And you can view your offers, add-ons, and more importantly, the rated usage where you can get or set the spend of a customer. You can view the summary for all customers, a specific custom subscription, and similarly the usage details. I'll walk you through in more details of these specific rated usage scenarios after this. Also, if you're a two-tier partner, you can verify if the MPN ID exists, right? And what are the details for that MPN ID. You can get all the subscriptions by an MPN ID for a customer. You can log service request through APIs. You can get the actual invoices, the line item wise, the recon file that you get. You can use your APIs to also get the same information. So you can do your reconciliation programmatically in your apps, and also you can update profiles. So all in all, this is what you get with SDK and API. You get an API endpoint, right, which is api.partnercenter.microsoft.com. You also have an SDK, which you can go to our partnercenter.microsoft.com and go to the developer page, which is this. You can download all this stuff. Where is the SDK? We are also giving 2 samples. One sample which I talked about was the web sample, which is kind of a web storefront, which you can just configure and publish quickly. Also, we're giving you a full set of samples to see how each of this method of SDK can be called. So it's not just a documentation, it's a working sample in a .NET project, which you can directly just download it and use it. And either you can take a snippet from there, or you can use it as a reference and build of your own. But that comes out very handy to integrate rather than you figuring out how do you integrate with our SDK or APIs. With this, we'll move into the rated usage. So rated usage is the way we are giving it is, as Vikram just talked about the rate card and the usage APIs, which are resource-based APIs in Azure. We're kind of giving a rated usage abstracted view of connecting all of them together in one API call, and which is very much in line with what you see in Partner Center. So you can just use one API of rated usage for Partner Center API and do the same kind of operations. And this is an estimated usage that I will use this word again and again. The usage that we show is all an estimated usage. It is not an actual. Should not be used actually for billing. For billing, you get invoices every month, which you should use, and we already have APIs for those, which you should use to actually bill to your customers. But this gives you a very much view of an in-depth view of how your customers are performing, and if they are like way above the spend and all that, so you get that alerts and all that information earlier, so that you can take appropriate actions. First one, which will look into the customer spending budget. And this is the way you can see how much the customer is spending on the budget. And you can even set their limits, that when they cross the limit, we don't do as Microsoft, we don't take any action when they cross the limit. But this gives you a view of, if you set the limit as like $100, and if they are at 120 or 150, then you can pick a phone and call up to them or email them and see what's going on, and you can either change their limit or ask them to prepare, whichever. That's your action, but we are giving an API for you to just get that information so that you can take an action and on your front. And when I refer in the code as managed API, that implies that it's a SDK, and REST APIs are APIs that are available. Using both, you can do the same. You can get per customer the budget, right? Or you can even set the budget for a customer via SDK or via API. Next one is the usage summary, how to actually get further details on either of 3 views, either as a partner for all my customers, either the usage for a specific customer, or the usage of a specific subscriptions. All these usage summaries are provided with the latency of anywhere from 24 to 48 hours. And as soon as your billing cycle is, invoice is generated, this is again reset to 0, and it again starts from day by day. So as a usage summary for a partner, there are multiple things that you get. You get using the customer over budget property, you can get how many customers who are actually exceeding the total of whatever the limit was set for them. You can also see the trend, how many are actually 80% over the 80% budget which is set for them. You can get all the customers who are actually using subscriptions which have usage. And also you can also generate an email for all of them so that you can notify them right there based on any one of these criteria. So as a partner, right, you can get the usage of all of your customers, right, on all these properties which I just talked about. And then you can take the appropriate action. If you want to just notify them by email for all the ones who are exceeding over budget or trending over, accordingly you can notify them using the emails to notify property, and then take your action in your app. Next level of that is if I want to use a summary for a specific customer. This gets a little deep into now for a customer. If I want details of all their subscriptions, right, then you can use this API to get all the details of all subscriptions for a given customer rather than all customers. You can see their total cost, you can see their budget, and the percentage they are actually consumed. And all the examples I'm giving is with the both, so you can choose depending on the technology. If you are a non-Microsoft, you have to go with REST APIs. And if you are in a Microsoft technology, I would recommend you the SDK. That really simplifies your workflow. Then gets down to the next level, which is subscription. If you want for a resource level information or any additional information of a specific subscription of a specific customer, that is also available. It's another drill down level from a partner to customer and customer to a subscription. So you get a customer first, and for a customer you get a subscription, and for a subscription you can get a user summary, which can include the information that we just talked about. In addition, you can have the start date, end date, total cost, the budget spend for that, and what is the percentage over, and all that stuff for a specific subscription. With this, next we get into the usage details. Now, if you want to get to the next level of seeing the user summary, you want a resource level information of these, of a summary of the subscriptions. That is also available in Partner Center now. You can get it at a customer level, at a subscription level, or even at a resource level. Let's start with the first one, which is for all customers. So, as a partner, if you want for all subscriptions of a specific customer, you can do that. You will also see a percentage here, which is how much is the percentage spent in the current month, and all with the spending budget and the actual amount that is used. This will give you all subscriptions for all the customers. Similarly, you can get now for a specific customer all their subscriptions. Per resource, you can get that amount that is spent and what was the budget. And the third level is at a subscription level. If you want on a daily basis for any given subscription, how much is my daily spend? Monthly is anyways by default. But if you want to get down to the level of how much for a given subscription, how are all the resources being used, which one is more or less, on a daily basis, you can get that at a detailed level where you can get the customer, get the subscription, and for a subscription, get all the usage records on a daily basis, and then accordingly take the action. It is also a good view for your customer using your portals. They can see how much they've used, and they can take their action on their own, in addition to you notifying them by different means to take their appropriate action. Again, all this is only an information to, as a proactive information, so that you don't cross a limit in terms of when an invoice comes and you're not surprised. But these are not used to actually generate an invoice for a customer. This is only an estimated information provided so that you can proactively take actions, but not wait for the actual invoice to come and surprise you later. I think that's all I had. So I would love to hear any questions that you have on either of the 5 topics that we covered today, in addition to what Vikram presented before.
Okay, Ashish, so I have there were a couple of questions via IM, so I will go through those first. And then I'll also, after that, if you have questions, I will unmute you guys so that you can speak. So let me just go through the IM questions first. The first one was from Janelle. Our clients want to do daily pulls of their spending. Is there a way to create a view for our clients to do this?
You can do the daily view today.
I think let me rephrase the question. I think it's probably the authorization to access the API is to the partner, and not to the customer. You could essentially have a job which would essentially access the data and give it to your customer. That's one option.
Or you can use your portal to surface that information which partners can
That
do.
is right. So there is no authorization by customer today that the customer can access, because the one thing to note here is these are the partner prices. These are not, you could be charging differently to the customer.
Yes.
So we don't by default have a way so that you can put the customer in.
Okay. Next question is from Arvind. Is there a way to get usage data in the hourly grain?
No, not as of today.
Not in this API, but let me take that question too. There is the one which Ashish talked about is the estimated usage API for the current month. There is a raw usage API that is available for partners, which is essentially gives you usage over several months and things like that. It has two granularities for that API, that is hourly and daily. So you could use the raw usage API, which gives you your consumption, not the price associated with it. So you would have to calculate using the rate card, and you could get the hourly granularity and use that and calculate the cost. I do want to bring one nuance out, is that even though it's an hourly granularity, it doesn't mean that the cost or the usage is coming out hourly. So to clarify that question is that if a VM is running right now, there is a delay when the usage from the VM itself comes. So there could be a couple of hours a delay by which when the usage comes from the VM. In addition, the usage API or the usage subsystem adds some more delay. That delay could be either 1 hour, that granularity you can get it at 1 hour or 24 hours, but doesn't mean that if VM running at 10:30 today, you'll get the usage at 11:30. There is a finite amount of delay based on the service when the usage comes out.
So a follow-up to that question. So Jean-Philippe asks, is there hourly usage for subscription? I believe you answered that, right? That's the same
Yeah, it's
question.
similar question.
So Arvind's follow-up question is, what is the latency for availability of the data for daily and monthly grains?
So the latency for the daily and monthly grains, I guess there are two pieces to the latency. The latency through the partner center API that Ashish talked about, I believe that is 24 hours.
Yes, 24 to 40, around 24 hours.
Yeah. But there is also, as I mentioned, there is a latency for when a service itself emits the data at the source. So if a VM runs right now, it could be anywhere from 4 to 5 hours by the time the usage for that VM comes out. And for this is service dependent. It's not consistent across services. But as far as you're talking about data for the monthly and daily grains, which is at the end of the day or month, that's 24 to 48 hours.
Okay, next question is from Ryan Ralph. Is monthly based on current partner billing cycle?
The recon file is based on the partner monthly billing cycle. Yes.
Okay. And then Ben Peterman, so as the data isn't real time, do you have any usage examples of the API?
Yeah, we do. We do have usage examples of our API. If we go to our, and I can just show you right away.
Yeah, there are two things, like as Ashish is bringing it up, he has the samples for how to use the API for the partner center SDK. There's also on GitHub, there is a sample for using the raw usage API. So if you want to get usage beyond just the current month, you can do that using the examples on GitHub.
So if you go to partnercenter.microsoft.com today and go to developer, and you can go to download samples. This console test tab that we have, this is the samples I was referring to. It actually takes you to GitHub, and you can download the sample. This has a full set of APIs. Via SDK, it shows you all different samples, which includes usage. You go to this. There you go. So I would encourage go to github.com/partner center samples and download this.
Hey,
Or you
Vikram.
could go by the navigation path I just showed. Yeah. Go ahead.
So what I mean by that is when I say the data isn't real time, it can take 2 or 3 hours. Do you have like scenarios of how customers are using the APIs and what types of reports they're pulling and when? So typically, are these just used at the end of the month when billing's done? You wait a few days, run the commands, get all your usage reports and move away? Or are they being used in real time, or well, allegedly real time, to update something to save us time when it comes to billing? That's kind of what I meant.
Yeah. When you say customer, you mean the partner. Right?
That is correct, yes. I mean the partner.
Because customers cannot access these APIs. It's only partners. So partner uses multiple ways. The first one is to actually set alerts based on how the customer is spending, because most of the customers prepay partner. When if they cross the limit, then the partner can charge them for the new amount, right? So that's one of the prime ways they use it, and also to as a notification to them how our customers are using doing the usage, and are they going over or not. Those are the different scenarios, and they're referring mostly on a daily basis. The sub scenarios which we looked at is even like partners that are using once in a month or like on a weekly basis. So everyone has a different way of based on their business need. But what we are providing is since it's with every billing cycle the usage refreshes, right, and it clears up because you have invoice now. So we are providing on a daily basis, and it's incremental, and you keep getting the data. It's up to the partner how you want to actually use it based on your business need.
Okay, thank you.
And I've unmuted the audience, so if anyone has questions that are on the phone, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask. And if for people that are joining via phone or don't want to unmute themselves, please feel free to IM the question, and then I'll just repeat it to be answered.
I do have another question for you.
Sure, Ben, go ahead.
So, Vikram, you're talking about, typically customers are prepaying for this usage, but, from my understanding, CSP is pay as you consume. So we estimate using the pricing tools what they're going to be paying, and at the end of the month, that's when we create that bill for them and reconcile or do whatever else we need to do with them, based upon their usage, not upfront.
That is correct. Actually, for Azure, it is based. It is usage based. I think so. You have to wait till the end of the month for usage. You need to get the usage, then the rates, and calculate the pricing, or use the Partner Center SDK to get the current running usage cost kind of thing. And whenever you want to do snap to, you could snap the billing cycle for your customer.
So with that in mind, then. As we have to wait to the end of the month to understand what the usage is, will the APIs you were talking about, spend and stuff like that, seeing how much they're using, making sure they don't go over an estimated limit, do those still function, or do we have to wait to the end of the month and then it's a surprise?
No. So you don't have to wait to the month. Everything is running costs. So other than the latency that comes in, you have to essentially continue with the usage that is daily usage and calculate the pricing in that sense. So you get billed by your billing cycle. What you bill the partner is your choice of what the billing cycle is, as well as you will get the rates continuously. So not rates, usage continuously. Yeah. Okay. Modulo the delays in the pipeline.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, I have two questions. So let me do the first one via IM. So our event has asked, if the current billing cycle were to end on June 30th, then when would the monthly usage and invoice summary data be available in order to invoice end customers?
So invoices always should be based on the invoice when it's available. So billing cycle is June 30th, which means you get an invoice on June 30th. So that's what you should use to invoice your customer, and to view usage that is available all throughout the month, all on a daily basis.
And I think I want to add to that is that the invoice is what Azure or Microsoft gives to you. What you do, like how you bill your customers, that billing cycle may be different, and you can choose to bill them just based on usage and rates. So you don't have to wait till the invoice that comes from Microsoft. Okay, there's one more
Okay.
question. I think
Yes. Yes.
rated usage from the previous day set in stone.
So let me just read because not everyone's
Yeah.
on IAM. So this question is from Nick. Is rated usage for a previous day set in stone? For example, if I pull a usage record for Thursday and pull it again in a week, is there a chance it will have been changed / revised?
That usage record will not be changed, but you could get more usage records for Thursday. So the example here I'm giving you is that if you're querying by the date, what could happen is that usage comes in late. So on Thursday, let's say compute hours was 10 hours, you'll get a usage record for 10 hours. And that 10-hour record will not change. But on that same day, you could essentially have a record which gets. So if you look at the usage API, there are two pieces. There is a usage date and a reported date. So usage that occurred on Thursday could get reported on Saturday. So you could get more usage records which are on that day. So it's not revised, but you could get late usage coming in for that day later, reported later.
And then I'll just ask a question that I've received previously. Is there an API that tells you what resource providers haven't checked in?
Can you clarify that question? I'm not really sure what it means by resource providers are checked in.
Hey, Vikram, it's Andrew. I think what Amma was asking is something that her and I have been asked before, which is we have this delay, it could be 24 to 48 hours for consumption to check in or usage to check in, and we've had quite a few partners ask as of late if there's an API that they could get access to that would give them let's say the last timestamp of that region's resource provider checking in usage.
So that by itself is not available, but if you go to the raw usage, you get the time when the usage was emitted, in the sense that, as I mentioned, there are two delays here, right? You could basically go to the usage API, the raw usage API, and get an hourly granularity of the data, and that will have a timestamp of when the usage was reported. What that means is that still doesn't tell you essentially that, so it essentially gives you a record saying that usage which occurred from 12 to 1 is 10 hours. And, or because you may, 1 hour. 12 to 1 is 1 hour. And it just gets reported late. So you do have the timestamp in the hourly granularity of when it occurred. You won't know, like the delay is not something that we publish, as well as is not deterministic, because every resource provider could have a different delay. That's one part of it. And also the delay is dependent on sometimes on the load. Most resource providers try to do it within the 4 to 6 hours windows, but there could be cases where that delay could change. But you would get the timestamp of when the usage occurred. Especially when you go with the hourly granularity.
That's helpful. Thank you, Vikram, for clarifying. Any other questions? I know this is a very hot topic. We still have partners on the line. We have about 10 more minutes. So as I said, you can unmute yourself if you want to speak, or I am the question if you're not able to unmute yourself, and I can ask on your behalf. Great questions, though. Sure.
This is Ash. I have a question.
Sure.
So it's just a follow-up on another question that was just answered on whether a usage record is changed or revised. I understand that the existing API, like CREST API, if I was using that, and also Azure Usage and Rate Card API, there is a actual usage time and there's a reported time for that usage, right? So I just want to clarify that if I get a usage data, daily usage summary for a subscription using the Partner Center SDK today, is it reported based on the reported date time or use date time? Because I did not really understand the answer earlier. I'm still confused about that part.
So just before I give it back to Ashish on this, I was talking mainly on the usage API, the raw usage API and the rate card API. That in that API you have the start time, reported like the usage time and the reported time. If that record will never not get revised, you will get you can get more records on the usage time reported at a different time, but at least in the usage API that comes from the CREST API or the usage rate card API, not the Partner Center SDK, that doesn't get revised. I'll hand over to Ashish for the question on
And which is the same way our SDK and API also works, right? Once it is reported, that number remains the same, right? But in case there are numbers that are reported later, that are added to the same date, right? For a specific date. The same example which we're giving before for the Thursday. If the numbers are reported later, they will also show up in the rated usage of SDK or API. It's the same functionality. It's not.
Yes, sorry to interrupt. So if I have a VM that is running today and it reports usage, let's say, right now around 2 p.m., right? It reports that usage, and when I make a Partner Center SDK API call, I get that rated usage returned from there. Let's say it was, $10. And if I make that same call tomorrow for that same VM, will I get 12? Is it possible that I could get $12 for today, finally, like tomorrow?
As such, anyways, if you're talking about today, chances are you may not get tomorrow. It will be a day later because there's a 24 hours latency, right?
Yeah, but I think the question is more only, let's say, take this example for after 24 hours.
Yeah.
Let's say I got a VM usage from yesterday and it said 20 hours.
Yeah.
And that was basically based on whatever you got reported.
Yeah.
And after a day after that, late usage got reported for yesterday. Will that change the record?
No, it will only add, right?
It'll add. So basically the number is changing.
Yeah.
Okay. So Partner Center SDK number, as Ashish was saying, will change for that day.
Yeah.
The usage API is slightly different in the sense that usage API basically, the records basically get locked.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yes, you did. So just one more clarification. I think I saw somewhere in the API that the usage record has a property that says date used, I think, or something like that,
Yeah.
which kind of tells me that the actual usage record is organized by reported time, and then each actual item has a time that says when it was actually used. Is that a correct interpretation? So like, for example, let me clarify that. So if I make a Azure usage API call, I think I'm able to say return data from this start time to that end time, right? But for the Partner Center SDK or Partner Center API, I don't do that. It's always for this current billing period, right?
Correct.
So I'm not able to specify start and end. But when I specify for the other API, when I specify start time and end time, that is, I think that time is reported time, right? Not the usage time. So what I wanted to clarify was, does the Partner Center SDK also work that way? So the current billing, you're reporting by the billing cycle, current billing cycle. But are you actually using the reported time or the usage time?
Reporting
when
time.
you're
So whenever it is
reported time.
reported, right, based on that reported time, we show the usage.
Okay, so basically you're saying if the reported time falls within this current billing period, then you include that result in the API.
Exactly. Correct.
Okay, and each record actually has a property that says when it was
When
actually used.
correct. When was it used? Yes.
Okay,
That's the
that
date.
clarifies it. Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Emma, you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I think we have about 4 more minutes. Any other questions from the audience? Okay, well, if not, I'll have Vikram and Ashish just stay on the line in case anyone is shy. Um, just to inform everyone, so the next module is number 4, and it's covering Azure Resource Manager. That is to start within 3 minutes. On the screen, you have the phone and conference ID if you would like to join. And it's also, of course, in the invitation. So with that, I will officially end this module. Thank you, Vikram and Ashish, for presenting and answering these partners' questions. I think it was a great session. We'll stay on just for the next 2 to 3 minutes to make sure no one has any last-minute burning questions.
Yeah. And I just see a question. So for Arvind, you should be able to request access to the CSP Yammer community. And if you're a CSP partner, it will be approved. Have you requested that? Okay. Yeah, it will be approved then.
Any other questions? 1 more minute. Speak now, forever hold your peace.
Hello, did you already send the invite for the next session?
Yes, I can also put it in the IM window if that's easier, but it's in the same invite for here. Whom is asking?
Kunal?
Kunal. Sure, let me just put it in the IM window. There you go, so it's in the IM window.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, Vikram and Ashish, I think we are all set. Thank you very much.